Hey, I'm Art Muffin, and today I'm going to be narrating the steps that I took to paint this painting called Hexagonal Microcosm. Just to give you a little background real quick, this was a commission that I did for someone. They commissioned it as a gift for their significant other, who is a sacred beekeeper, and he requested that there be bees in it, obviously, and that he just wanted it done kind of in my Book of Gosh style, with some symbols and some writing, and something that kind of tied it to the universe somehow. I might be making up that last part. I might have just brought that in on my own, but yeah. So this is the narration for that. I hope you like it. I took the sketch that I did in Photoshop, and once I got the approval from the person that commissioned it, for me to go ahead and start painting it, I got it printed at a local print shop, and at the exact size I was going to be painting it, which was 11 by 14. And then on the back of the page that you see me drawing on right now, I actually took a soft lead pencil and just covered the entire back of it to kind of make it like a piece of transfer paper or carbon paper, basically. So then I paste that or tape that onto the watercolor paper that I'm going to paint on, and I just use a easy to see colored pencil. As you can see here, I used orange, and I just outline everything that I feel that I'm going to need to see in order to keep the painting as accurate to the approved pencils as possible. You can kind of see a little bit. I flipped it up, flipped the paper up so you could see all the pencil on the back. And here I'm writing in some of the Gosh stuff, Gosh characters, and that was me flipping it again. So they're good example. You can see I just literally was just scribbling on the back of it, just covering the whole back with a soft lead pencil. I think it was a 2B. And then once I'm sure I've got the image transferred onto the watercolor paper, I just go in with either Micron pens or Molotov pens, and I just start inking what I'm sure I want to show through, because in the final product, or at least pretty sure, depending on how many layers I think I'm going to be painting. So kind of start from the bottom right and work my way up left, just because otherwise my hand smudges the pencil transfer. You can see there I've got paper towel just to keep me from smudging it too much. I'm sorry about the quality on this. I was streaming a lot of this live on Facebook while I was doing this process, and I wasn't, for some reason it didn't save as high a quality video as I thought it was saving, so sorry that it's a little bit pixelated. So here I'm outlining basically what worked out really nicely. It was a heart chakra symbol, which it just kind of came about just throughout the process. I had the lines from the hexagon, the points drawn in, and then the guy that commissioned it, mentioned, hey, what about having a heart chakra in here? And it fit perfectly. Like it was just perfect. It worked out just right, and it made total sense for it to be that. So here, as you can see, I went and painted the background color to make it look kind of like old parchment paper, and now I'm starting to fill in the interior of the larger bee, the anatomical bee. As you can see, I've got this bee with basically like a human rib cage and kind of like human bones inside its legs. So it's obviously not anatomically correct, but I like, I don't know, crossing different creatures and seeing what kind of hybrids we can come up with. And this bee, the shape like worked perfectly. Like if you look at a anatomy of a sea turtle and you look at their big front flippers, they're actually almost perfectly have human hand bone structure. It's crazy how much they just look like human hands inside there. So there is definitely crossover among all of us species. Anyway, so here I'm starting to block in some of the honeycomb. When I first started doing this, I thought I was just going to be doing one like quick wash of color just to kind of give it the idea of the honeycomb being in there. But then once I got going, I realized that I was going to need some more variety in there just to make it a little more interesting and seem a little more real. I also like the way it kind of broke up the corner a little bit more, having those variations in there. So here I'm building up the bees. There are 3 bees in the top left. I used some reference off of the internet for what the bees actually look like fairly closely. And you will sometimes fake it a little bit here and there depending on how I want it to look, but overall these are very close to anatomically correct. What else? Building up the second one. Yeah, so if you are an artist, don't be afraid to use reference and go online and look things up. Like not many people actually know what a bee really looks like up close, zoomed in, or almost anything else. Like we all have just a vague idea of things and we know what they are when we see them, but if someone asked you to sit down and draw it and make sure that it was accurate, like hardly anyone can do that unless that's their specialty. So using reference is absolutely fine, in my opinion anyway. How else are you going to get these things to look the way they're supposed to if that's what the end result is supposed to be? If it's fantasy creatures or something and they're going to end up with tails and spikes on them, it doesn't really matter as much. You just have to get close then, maybe. But it just depends on what you're working on. So here I'm working on the back of the anatomical bee. So the back right part that I'm painting right now is actually anatomically correct. I used an illustration that someone else had done as reference so that I could get it pretty close to being accurate, because I wanted there to be some sense of reality built into this thing, especially since I had the kind of human skeleton that I was using as its own skeleton. And then on the left side here, I ended up drawing a microcosm on this side. Originally I had something else, and the person that commissioned me asked me about it and wasn't feeling like it was fitting, so I reworked it and tried something else and came up with the microcosm idea, because that seemed to fit better with what I felt like we were trying to accomplish anyway, so it worked out really nicely. There's an airplane in the background. I don't know why the camera is moving like that. That's kind of weird, but yeah, what are you gonna do? So here, yeah, I'm just building up the microcosm more, giving it more depth, more layers. There are a couple planets in there, and then a little galaxy, and then kind of a Milky Way going on. And I really like how it turned out and how it balanced with the anatomy of the bee, and just having those two things kind of side by side coming together. I feel like tells us this cool message of It's like everything being connected and all being one. So here I'm building up more shape in the bees, adding in more shadows and some highlights just to make them feel more rounded. Working on the legs and just some details, just to make them feel a little more present, a little more dimensional, more like they're here in this space. And this is a fun piece to do. I've never painted bees accurately before, so it was fun. I really enjoy doing insects and arachnids, and just all these little things that are running around and flying around all over the place around us that oftentimes we don't even notice, but they're everywhere. They're definitely running the planet. So here I'm building up on this third bottom bee. Again, just adding in highlights. I think I'm starting to add in, or we'll start adding in some stuff in the wings soon. And just cleaning up the legs a little bit. And touch-ups in the eyes, do a few more layers. Darken the highlights and then lighten them back up again just to give them a little bit more of a feeling of depth. Here I'm making the center part of the body of the anatomical bee a little bit darker so that it looks like it goes back a little further, and then pushing back some of the internal organs to give it some depth. And here I'm putting in some highlights, some white, it's probably an off-white, like off-white and ochre, or I think I even used a little bit of blue or green in there just to give it a different tint, and so it didn't just feel like it was just solid white on there, because that never really looks that great. And here I'm building up the wings on the other bees, just giving them a little bit of a shimmer, so that they feel like they're present and semi-transparent. This part was fun. It was cool seeing how this was going to work out. Building up the bee wings. I like how they turned out though. It's hard for me to figure out where light's going to hit things sometimes, so I was a little nervous about painting these because I wasn't really using my reference when I was doing the wings, so I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out, but I had a pretty good idea in my mind, so I just started painting. And here I'm dropping in some shadow just so they feel more like they're in the space, like they're on the paper or on the honeycomb, depending on what you're seeing. And now I'm just going in and touching things up, highlighting the edges of wings and darkening some of the veins, or I don't remember what they're called, but they look like veins to me. Same things as what are in the leaves of our trees, which is also kind of cool that they look so similar. So just more detail. I mean, like as I'm getting closer to the end, like the painting gets tighter and more fine, and just looking at where things could be helped a little more. There I was darkening the color of or adding in color in that sigil down in the bottom left. Here I'm using some gold, kind of a reflective gold or metallic gold paint on some of the main points of the diagram that's connecting them. And here, just building in a little more shadow and texture in the page. A little more of the gold laid over top. I like how it kind of makes it look a little bit dirty, but also more sacred. And this is final spot, just adding in highlights. And yeah, just final touch-ups. Eye highlights towards the end. Little bone highlights here and there. Yeah. So that's it. Here's the finished product. So yeah, that's Hexagonal Microcosm. As of my recording this audio, the person that had this commission for them just sent me a photograph of it. They had it matted and framed. It's hanging up in their house, and it looks really great. They did a great job choosing a mat and frame that worked. So it's always nice to see that when you're finished, and then you see it in someone else's house and that they're gonna live with it. That's a really cool feeling. So anyway, that's Hexagonal Microcosm. Check out more of my videos if you want to. I'm on Instagram at artmuffin_studio. My website's artmuffin.com. I'm on Facebook at Artmuffin Studio. Yeah, look for me. I'm around. All right, thanks.